Let's get right to China expert and the great U.S.-China tech war author, Gordon Chang. First of all, these drills in the South China Sea, is China just testing us, or are they actually preparing for an invasion of Taiwan?
Well, both. And clearly, this is getting ominous because the Wall Street Journal yesterday reported that China is trying to sanction-proof its senior officials. Now, they wouldn't do that unless they were thinking they were going to do something which we would impose sanctions on them, like invading Taiwan or some other nation. So the Chinese military is always constantly trying to improve itself, to get itself more ready. And clearly, they're thinking about invading somebody.
Now, they don't have an endless supply of money, particularly after these latest lockdowns that they've had in Shanghai and Beijing and elsewhere in the country, which have really slowed the economy down, hasn't it? I mean, they're in a very tough situation. Of course, we can never trust their figures, the figures that come out of the government, because they're all cooked. But are they having economic troubles right now?
April, they had year-to-year contraction, maybe March as well. This economy in China is going downhill very fast. We see, for instance, retail sales down 11.1% year-on-year in April, and that's a lot. But when you start looking at the property numbers, down 29%, down 31% on sales, and also on new construction starts, this is the heart of the Chinese economy. It accounts for somewhere between 25 and 30% of GDP. About 70% of Chinese wealth are invested in apartment units. This is something that China can't deal with because they've got a debt crisis.
And they're still pulling strings in North Korea, by the way. We just heard that there are suspicions that there may be another nuclear test from North Korea or some other provocation from them spurred on by China, right?
Absolutely, because Biden is trying to present his trip as sort of rallying the region against China. Well, what is China doing? It's saying, let's change the nature of the conversation by having North Korea doing something provocative, either a missile launch or a nuke detonation. So basically, we're going to talk about North Korea, and China goes sort of scot-free while Biden is in South Korea and Japan.
Another group that's scot-free are the corporate quislings, I would call them, from the United States that are going back to providing cover for China. And I'm thinking in particular the NBA. The NBA is going back. The Basketball Association is going back. What's the latest on that?
Well, their playoffs are being aired in China for the first time, and we're seeing, they've been off air for 3 years in China. The NBA owners, a lot of the value of their franchises relates to their business in China, and also they've got investments in China, and ESPN has done this enormous investigation of it, and it really shows you how China is able to own a critical sports in the United States. And this is going to be, it's sector by sector as well, because we've had all of these reports, David, about how China is so important to defense contractors or the consulting industry. This is really serious for us.
By the way, thank God for Innes Freedom. His voice speaks loudly, particularly now. Finally, I'm hitting all the sensitive areas here. The Vatican, and I'm a Catholic, so I love the Vatican, but the fact is the Vatican continues to play footsies with the Communist Party of China, even as Cardinal Zen, the great Cardinal Zen in Hong Kong, was arrested recently. Now, he's been let out. Maybe some of that has to do with the Vatican, but the Vatican allows the Communist Chinese Party, the Chinese Communist Party, to help them pick bishops, for goodness sakes, in China. So even an institution like the Vatican is playing footsies with the Communist Party there.
The Vatican has this 2018 agreement with China, which was extended. It's going to come up for extension in October this year. And clearly, it's only been to the benefit of the Communist Party, not to the benefit of religion or to the Catholic Church. And then you have, as you say, Cardinal Zen was detained in Hong Kong under the national security law.
He's 90 years old, by the way. That's the sign of a real bully, going after a 90-year-old.
And clearly, you had the Vatican issue statements which were milquetoast at best. Yeah. Really disappointing.
And Jimmy Lai, what's the very latest on Jimmy Lai? He's been in jail now for over a year, right?
Right, and he's been hit with another charge under the national security law. He's going to be in jail for the rest of his life unless the United States can spring him free.
All right, stay with us for a second, Gordon. I just want to focus your attention to the red on the screen. Again, we started the day with green on the screen. As you can see now, the Dow Jones is at 354 points to the negative. The NASDAQ is down as well. S&P is very close to bear territory if it hasn't hit it already. Have we hit bear territory yet in S&P? Not quite. But we are very close to that level, 3,849 in the S&P. That's a loss of about 1.33%, and the Nasdaq is close to a 2% loss. We are seeing losses on all of the areas of the stocks that have been hit hard, particularly the Nasdaq. As usual, we are getting close to that 10,000 level. I'm just wondering, Gordon, as the economy seems to be slipping into a recession and we're going into bear territory for a lot of our indexes here, do you think that China can take advantage of this moment for the United States, or are they in enough economic trouble themselves so they're worried about their own future? Because their economic future is very much intertwined with ours.
Yeah, Beijing is hysterically worried, and the reason is Fed raising rates. That's causing outflows of capital and a 7% drop in the renminbi. So their number one problem, or at least their potential number one problem all the time, is capital outflow. They've been able to manage it for the last 3 or 4 years, but now they're starting to lose control of that again as more and more money is coming out.
That is to say, to put it in plain language, Chinese people that have cash are getting rid. They're changing it for dollars. They're trying to move it out of the country. They've tried to hold that back, but holding back capital flows is almost an impossible task for a government.
Yes, and even though China has strict capital controls and in effect has controls on the current account, although they're not formal, but they are informally enforced, the problem here is that all this money is coming out of China because of the difference in rates. You know, why wouldn't you invest in U.S. debt when it's pays so much more than China, which is a much greater risk?
We often bang on the Fed for not doing enough, but they're doing a lot more than what a lot of countries are doing around the world, and that's why the dollar is strengthening as a result, and that's why the Chinese currency is getting weaker, and that's why the flows are coming into the U.S. dollar.
And it's not only the Chinese currency getting weaker, it's dropping uncontrollably at times, and that means that the Chinese central bank is losing the ability to manage the situation. And that's why you're having so much pessimism. As much as a reason for pessimism in the U.S., and I can understand it, the problem in China is so much worse. They don't have control over it. They don't have an independent monetary policy. They're tied to the U.S. dollar. And whatever the Fed does for U.S. purposes, you know, it really hurts China, and China can't do anything about it.
But China is now seeing the president of the United States in their territory in Asia right now. They must look at his numbers, his poll numbers, and be happy to see, because they're happy when U.S. leadership is down. I want to stand behind our leaders when they're in enemy territory, and I would call that enemy territory right now, at least adversarial territory. How much are they putting their hopes on Biden making more mistakes?
I think that that's really their primary strategy right now, unfortunately, because they saw the chaos in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. They saw the failure to deter Russia on Ukraine, and they're probably thinking that there would be a failure to deter China should it go after one of its neighbors like Taiwan. And as well, they saw the sanctions on Russia, but they saw that those sanctions were not complete, and the Chinese actually believed that no one would dare to impose sanctions on the Chinese because the Chinese believe, well, we're so powerful, we're so important, and we're Chinese, so you can't touch us. I mean, that's wrong. I think that they misperceive the situation, but the point is not whether they're right or wrong in assessing the situation. What's important is their mentality.
Are they going to be at all successful getting rid of the Trump sanctions? They want to get rid of it. Biden has leaned in that direction. Still not sure how it will all end up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, but I'm being very pessimistic, and I'm thinking that the Biden administration will indeed take those tariffs off.
Gordon, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.